but it's a different type. It's a very different type of communication. And part of that is because we can't approach it the same way as we approach mediumship, where we're mediating a conversation between strangers, for the simple reason that everything that comes to you in that is something unknown to you. And so you know everything you get is, well, it's not coming from me because I don't know the first thing about it. When you're sitting with your own loved ones, it's very different because there's such a familiarity and there's such a, that it's almost sometimes difficult to know the difference between you and them. So my mother, for instance, after my mother passed, my mother was communicating with me. I couldn't tell the difference between my mother and me because my mother, right? I mean, we were missing her bank card at one point, and I just went up and put my hand in the lining of her bag and took it out. Now, it wasn't like my mother came showing me the bag, showing me the torn lining, it was just that knowing of just go up, put my hand in, found the card was stuck in the torn lining of her bag. You see the difference. And there is that sort of, the closer the person is to us, the more the communication will probably be claircognizance, where we just somehow know something, or it'll be more clairsentient, where you've probably noticed you're just sort of watching TV or something some night, and then suddenly just a feeling of calm or a feeling of peace comes over you for no particular reason. It's because your loved one is there to bring that to you. So it's not, they're not coming with like flashing neon lights. They're coming with something more subtle and more. But because of the familiarity there, sometimes they can be different, harder to know where they end, where we begin, especially if it's a very close related, like spouse or child or parent. But it is possible to do that communication. It is possible to communicate like that. I found at this point, we get very, very busy in our day, and it's very hard when we're sort of engaged in the sort of the mundane and running around New York City and dealing with the heat and the subway and the cranky neighbors and the sirens and whatever. I mean, how on earth, right? But I find that it becomes very easy for our loved ones to communicate with us either in dream states or in the hypnagogic state between sleeping and waking, when we're sort of aware and we can remember, but we haven't fully stepped back into the waking world. And you'll often find a sound or a song or an image, something will come to you in that space, and that's a very easy place for loved ones to communicate with you like that. But they're generally there, I mean, my mother would finish sentences, I wouldn't even know she was there, and I would be sort of just very briefly, I was ruminating that to sell our childhood home there recently. And I came back, we had to sell, and I was very upset about it. And I came back to New York, and my mother loved her house. And I was starting in my mind, because, when we think ourselves, we don't think in full sentences. So if all of a sudden interjecting into your head comes a full sentence, the good chance it's not you, right? And so, because that's not the way the mind, which again, when we meditate, we begin to become very familiar with our own mind. But I'd ask her, I was starting to sort of formulate a question like, I wonder if she's happy with who we sold the house to. And before I'd even finished formulating the question, ruminating on it in my mind, it's clear as day, in a full, clear sentence, I couldn't be happier. Well, that's definitely my mother. But, your mother has got that relationship with you. So I wasn't even aware that she was listening until she answered the question before I even finished asking it. So these are the ways our loved ones, it's a much closer, more consistent type of communication. Also, anytime you turn your thought to your loved one, they can feel that thought touching them. And you've probably noticed yourself sometimes, out of the blue, you're just on about your day, washing the dishes or cleaning the floor, whatever. And all of a sudden, just clear out of nowhere comes this very clear thought, a clear memory of your loved one. Well, our minds work by association. And then people think, oh, just out of the blue, I had this thought about my dad or my husband or my son. But that actually is not what happened. What actually has happened there is that they thought of you, and your mind felt that thought touching you. And so there's the subtle ways our loved ones are constantly communicating with us. They don't just go off and start partying in the spirit world and leave you to fend for yourself after being your mother for how many years. Do you know what I mean? They're always going to be there when you need help. And so it's just a matter of being able to be aware of the different ways our loved ones communicate with us.